The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said.
Hello everyone, No One of Consequence here, back again with a new video. This is something different. I haven't before made any videos on these current gaming event topics, but I've seen several other videos about this, so I decided to take a crack at it myself. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to throw shade at this DM, I'm just commenting on these rules. I couldn't really find any detailed background context on this, but again, I didn't dig too deeply either. And as you can see here, the original person who posted this has since deleted their post. But anyway, just some things that I got an impression of reading through it. I get the impression that the person who made these rules might be a DM for an open table game, perhaps in a game store. I also get the impression that there are probably several players involved. I would say six, at least six, maybe even more. So anyway, let's just get into it. Alright, so rule number one, I'm timing turns. I don't give a frack if it's unfair in your opinion because your spells are hard or you don't know what square to move to. You get 1 minute to know all the actions you want to take, or I skip your turn. Alright, well, as for me, I don't specifically time turns, but I will push the players along if they are, in my opinion, taking too long. But especially if there's a lot of players, I can understand the need to set time limits. So I don't really have a problem with this. If you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. Alright. Well, as for me, everyone in my game has the option to create and run two characters. Most do, but some choose not to. And that's fine, but I'm not going to teleport in a replacement character if your only character dies. I've seen some YouTube DMs suggest doing this, but I disagree. You know, the players know death is a possibility when they sit down to play. So, if your character dies, that's the way it happens. There might, if there's like an NPC with the group, then the player might be able to run that in the meantime. But otherwise, you might just have to be a spectator for a while. So if you call me or my role's unfair, I'll get up and go home. And if you gotta ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. Well, harsh, but fair. As for me, I make almost all my DM roles in the open, so that way everyone can see that it's all impartial. I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as you want it given out. Rule 3 will apply here. Now, I would never arbitrarily take items from the characters. I mean, after all, I let them have it in the first place. However, I do require item saving throws in certain situations, which can and sometimes does result in the loss of items, and also, of course, enemies will certainly take a character's items if they get the opportunity. If you don't act out any of your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you fail before you even roll. You fail immediately because you aren't even trying and you're making the game lame for everyone else. Alright, well, I don't really have any problem with this. The version of Dungeons & Dragons that I play doesn't have things like persuasion or intimidation rolls. Players who do try to do these things are usually asked for some sort of an ability check with modifiers. Now, of course, I don't expect critical role type acting skills, but the player should at least give me something to work with. If you don't pick up keys for side quests, that's not my problem. Get over yourself. It's not a video game, it's a role-playing pen and paper based game with miniatures. I'm not holding your hand if you choose not to pursue Scheisse. Alright, sure, let the players drive the train for the most part. As for me, since I'm running classic AD&D adventure modules, which if you watch my other videos, this isn't really a problem in my game because players already know what the adventure is. But that said, there's always parts of the adventure that the players inevitably miss, and, well, that's just the way it happens. If you move to a square in combat, there are no takebacks. Well, I agree with this. As you know, if you've seen my other videos, I use Rule 20 with dynamic lighting and line of sight. So, if a player's move reveals something that they could not previously see, especially something like an adversary, then they don't get to take it back. Now, if they have additional movement points remaining, they could use them, to fall back again. But there are no takebacks once they begin moving in a tactical setting. You tell every single person what you're doing before you do it. Don't fracking roll dice and then say you're casting a fireball. You tell us all. I'm fine with this. The main thing in my game is I require players to declare any spell casting before initiative is rolled each round. I will give out exhaustion more frequently. If you argue, go home, or you can actually fight me over it, or you can DM yourself. Alright, well, I don't really know exactly what exhaustion is. I would just say don't exceed the rules for that sort of thing. Like I say, I don't have exhaustion in my game. However, rest time to regain the ability to rememorize spells is required. I do enforce that. This comment here, fight me over it. I see that a lot online. People say something, make a statement or an opinion or something, and they say, fight me. Do people really mean that, or is this just an expression? Because, back when I was young, if you went around saying, fight me, fight me, fight me, somebody's going to take you up on it, and you're liable to get your ass kicked. So, I don't know, maybe this is just an expression these days. Every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and paid back in triplicate. You all seem to believe there is little consequence. Well, in general, I agree with this. I do hold my players accountable for what their PCs say to NPCs. Sometimes when I mention that, they'll try to walk it back by saying they were not speaking in character. And I may or may not accept that explanation. It just depends on the situation. You will not be given a mega dungeon every session. A temple is not the size of a small city, neither is a cave. This scheisse will happen when it's natural and organic. Go play some roguelike if you want that. Well, you get no argument from me. That sort of thing takes a lot of prep time, and personally, I just like mega dungeons anyway. The Temple of Elemental Evil is about as mega dungeon as I ever want to get personally. The travel portion is done. You want to travel continents, doing literally whatever you want, whenever you want. Go play World of Warcraft or play D&D with AI. Not really sure what the complaint is here. Does the DM mean that the players are wanting to just warp around the campaign world? That's the only thing I can figure. As for me, I often hand wave overland travel just to move on with the adventure itself. Unless, of course, overland travel is actually part of the adventure, then I, of course, do include it then. If you're late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points for the entire session. Yeah, in general, it's rude to show up late for no particular reason. Luckily for me, I don't have this problem. My players are good, about keeping in touch when something comes up. You know, every one of my players are adults with careers and families, and unforeseen things do happen, and I get that. If you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me alone, if no one else has the guts to say scheisse for fear of upsetting one another, the first time you'll find yourself losing either a whole level or up to 3 major items of your own. The second time you do it in a row, you'll be removed from the chat and the group, full stop. I have no fracking time for people to not show up. Yeah, again, it'd be rude for a player to do that. It just shows that they do not respect the DM's time and effort, or really even the other player's time for that matter. As for me, I'm lucky. Again, I'm lucky enough not to have this problem. If you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without a warning. Your warning is here. I don't blame the DM for that. As for me, I enjoy a frosty adult beverage when I'm running my game, but I never get to the point that affects my ability to run the game. And same with my players. You know, those who indulge are usually able to pace themselves for the duration of the game session. If you get up for bong or smoke or whatever breaks every 10 minutes, I will simply pack up and go home. I'm sick of waiting for every bloke to be at the table. Now, this is simply more rude behavior on the part of the player or players in question. If you're not that much into the game, then really you should just go find something else to do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Our RPGs aren't for everyone. When I was as an aside, when I was reading this, and he says every bloke, I thought, well, this person is either in the UK or maybe Australia, because, of course, no one in the US uses the term bloke. Not that that matters, it was just an observation of mine. Guidance, divination spells, owls, and whatever spells I decide are too fracking stupid are banned outright. No more fracking guidance. Alright, well, your table, your rules. As for me, I don't outright disallow divination stuff, but it's not really a big part of the Dungeons and Dragons version that I run. You get one chance at a skill check. If you frack up, your party doesn't get their chance to do the same check. Think careful who's good at what. Alright, well, for me, that would depend on the situation. If one person listens to the door and hears nothing, then another player could certainly try as well. But on the other hand, if one player pisses off an NPC, then that NPC is going to remain pissed off even if another player tries talking to them. So again, for me, situational dependent. Discussion of metagame details in-game will result in instant damage to your character. Well, it's a heavy-handed approach, but I understand the reasoning behind it. For me, I just shut down the discussion if the metagaming is getting too far out of hand. But luckily, my players usually police themselves on that sort of thing before I need to get involved. Rules lowering fellow players is encouraged. Actually, me will just result in me telling you to frack off. Alright, well, your game, your rules. As for me, I will listen if you honestly believe I have made a bad rules call and can show me in the book where. And it does sometimes happen. And if it does, then I will, take it back. But in the case of a DM's discretion type ruling, my call will generally stand. You roll your dice within view of two players who aren't you standard. You roll them neatly and you roll them on the table. Failing to do these three things will auto-fail whatever roll you did, arguing that you actually rolled validly when you clearly didn't is an automatic critical fail. Yeah, as a player, you should make your dice rolls openly. That's just simple game etiquette. This sort of thing isn't a problem in my current game since they're on Roll20 and everyone can see what you rolled in the chat window. But even back in the old days, I don't recall anyone being bad about trying to conceal their dice rolls. Instant death traps and mechanics are coming into place. If you call these things unfair moving forward, I will laugh at you and tell you to frack off and cry some more. Now, in my opinion, this is just a dick move on the part of the DM, especially if these are just revenge traps and don't really make any sense in the setting. In my game, instant death situations are actually pretty rare. Even something like a deadly poison usually doesn't kill immediately, which gives the other characters a chance to try to do something if they have the means. In general, I just, I run old classic adventure modules, and I just run them as written, including traps. I will not give you random magical items, and vendors will not stock them. They are meant to be rare and hard to acquire. I agree with this. I don't have magic shops in my game either. To acquire magic items, you have to go out in an adventure to find them. Now, some adventure modules do allow for the limited purchasing of magic items, like the Village of Hamlet, for example. If the characters get on good terms with the wizard that lives in the tower in town, then it may be that they can buy some scrolls from him. And I don't have any problem with something like that. Random encounters in the form of random dragons or strange, mysterious road trader or a band of goblin prostitutes isn't going to happen. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. Well, in general, I agree with this. I normally don't use random encounters anyway, since they take time away from the real adventure. However, I do reserve the right to use them if the players are lollygagging around too much, or trying to do something like rest overnight in an unsafe area. I don't give two fracks what Reddit said about X or Y ruling. Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I actually give less of a frack about what your mate's group did. Yeah, again, same thing. Your table, your rules. Again, the term mates, so I thought, well, this person's either in the UK or maybe Australia. Saying anything to me about other players not liking me doing X or Y without them saying it directly to me will result in me kicking you out of the group. Don't use someone else to push your own agenda. Yeah, that would be a dick move by a player. If you believe in something strongly enough to speak to the DM about it, then just own it. As for me, I have, on rare occasions, privately messaged a player or players if something concerns me, but I never attack them over it, and we get it resolved. And all of that just comes from one of the leadership maxims when I was in the Army. In general, you should praise in public, correct in private. And that's what I try to do. You're not to sit down and have a 2-hour discussion about what Samson from Bundora Secondary did 3 weeks ago when you come to play. Take the 15 to 20 minutes I used to set up and review my notes to talk to each other, then sit down to play. In my game, I'll reserve up to the first 30 minutes of game time just to give everyone a chance to catch up on what everyone's been up to, what's going on, that sort of thing. But after that, it's game time. It's time to play. And yeah, just reading this, it said Bundora Secondary, and it's like, I don't know what that is, but that name, it sounds like it would be a place name in Australia. So I did a quick Google search, and sure enough, Bundora is a city in Australia. So that answers that question. Saying scheisse like, guys, come on, we're not here to have fun, we're here to play D&D. This is serious business is rude and dismissive of how much work I put into this. I will simply go home if I hear this scheisse. Yeah, something like that would be a dick thing to say. You know, I too put a lot of work into my games, and then when we meet to play, I'm trying to run it. I do think that a lot of players simply don't understand just how much prep time most DMs put into their games. So, if anything, I wish players would be more cognizant of that and try to respect it. Don't fracking order food randomly. We will eat together at a specific time or not at all. I don't want food scheisse all over my things. Yeah, I got no problem with this. You know, back back in the day when I played face to face, there were always snacks available at the game table. But yeah, actual eating, like ordering pizza, for example, should be an agreed upon joint event. Of course, this isn't really a problem for me now since we play on Roll 20. Um, all I ask for people is to try not to chew into the microphone. You know, and this reminds me back some years ago, I would sometimes watch games that were being live streamed on Twitch, and one thing that always to me was cringe is people who would eat like an actual meal sitting there at the game table during the live stream. I mean, me personally, if I know I'm going to be playing a game on a live stream, I'm gonna eat before the game starts because you know, honestly, no one looks good eating on camera. No food or drinks near any of my D&D gear. If you wreck something, you can pay for it. I let one person trash my DM screen once and I never had it replaced by them. In fact, I had that person attempt to gaslight me into believing that they didn't wreck my scheisse at all. I'm not stupid. You're an adult. Accept responsibility. Yeah, agreed. You know, be an adult and own your mistakes. Accidents do happen, and you know, people understand that. And, you know, I get it. Money might be tight, but you should still try to work something out with the DM or whoever owned whatever it is that you might have ruined. Arguments between party members outside of roleplay will be resolved by me giving the definite ruling. If you don't like it, frack off back home. Yeah, this is simply a maturity issue among the players. You know, luckily, I don't have this kind of problem. I don't give a frack what they did in Critical Role or what that one guy on Reddit said, or if you think that it's all make believe so you can do whatever you want. The world I run works on internal rulings and lore I created specifically for it. Yep, again, your game, your rules. As for me, personally, I'm not adverse to hearing input from the players, you know, as long as it doesn't distract from the immediate game. Because, I mean, honestly, sometimes players have better ideas than anything I had come up with. And, in my opinion, a good DM should always keep an ear open for that sort of thing and discreetly incorporate it whenever possible. But yeah, in general, I already have a plan in mind and try to stick to it. Every single person in this chat is having debuffs applied to their characters that should have occurred a long time ago. This will be specific to characters. Alright, well, this is a tough call, especially if players are only using rules that you allowed in the game in the first place. But on the other hand, yeah, I get it. Even the dungeon master can't foresee everything the rules might allow through no fault of the players. I would just say if it turns out to be game breaking, then it might be better to just start over using your modified rules. Or another thing you could do is give the players a choice. Accept debuffs on current characters or just start the whole thing over again. If you don't bring your sheet, you don't play. I have no problem with this. It's doing that sort of thing is just a mark of a player who doesn't really care, in my opinion. The sort of thing isn't a problem in my Roll20 game, since the character sheets are built in. But even back in my face-to-face gaming days, I don't recall this sort of thing ever happening. I've seen some YouTubers have suggested that the DM just keep the player character sheets. Well, that's fine if you want to do it, but I'm not doing it. You're presumably a responsible adult, and you should be able to keep track of at least a character sheet and a set of dice. And speaking of dice, if you don't bring dice, borrow some. Alright, well, fine. If someone has some spare dice that they're willing to loan. As a DM, I probably do have some extra dice I can loan out for the game session. However, players should not make a habit of not showing up with at least their own set of dice in their character sheet. If this is an ongoing problem, then it just shows that the player doesn't really care about the game. When we play D&D, I'm not your friend. That doesn't mean you treat me like an enemy during the game. It just means I'm no longer being nice. Well, everyone I play with I consider to be friends. Back in the day, when we, Dungeons & Dragons wasn't the only thing we did together. But even so, I do run my games as impartially as possible. I'm not going to pull punches just because we're friends. In general, my philosophy is just let the dice fall where they may. If you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form after or during or before the game due to something that happened in the game, you're out. If you cannot separate a game from reality, I think you are a fracking moron, and I have little time to deal with that energy. Yeah, I can't blame the Dungeon Master for this. Again, luckily, it's not a problem for me, either now or I don't recall it ever being a problem in the past. Like I just said a few minutes ago, we were already friends beyond just playing D&D together. Dungeons & Dragons was just one of the things we did together. You will submit your spell list daily in-game. If you do not give me a spell list each in-game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or cantrip in combat. I do not trust you guys to not use this against me. Well, my opinion on this, if you don't trust people you're gaming with, then why are you gaming with them in the first place? I do trust my players to keep track of their spell lists, and they're good about it. Just one of those things. If you want trust, you have to give it. And the same thing with something like respect. If you want it, you got to give it. So I would just say my advice is to just find people to game with that you do trust. If you do not mark off spell slots or say something like, I remember what I'm at, as a way to justify it, I will simply fail your spell, deal half your health and damage to you, and say you have no spells to cast for the rest of the day. Alright, well again, these are trust issues, and to that end, I just say, why are you gaming with these people? If you break literally anything, you can buy the replacement that day or not attend until you do. Now, this is the same thing that we discussed several points back. Just be an adult and own your mistakes. Again, accidents happen. People understand that. Just apologize, do the best you can to fix it, and move on. People will remember if you try to, weasel out of it, and in my opinion, it's just not worth the lost goodwill. If you complain about the choice of music, I fully expect you to bring the whole playlist next session, or shut the frack up. Yeah, complaining about stuff like this is just petty on the part of the player. They should be, in my opinion, they should be grateful that they have a DM who cares enough to provide background music. Cannot stress enough how little I care about how you feel about my rulings from now on. I would just say again, if things have gotten to this point, then why are you even still gaming with these people? It cannot be worth the toxicity. Oh, and Rule 44. I'm never just threatening you, I'm promising you. Alright, fair enough, but again, it just sounds to me like a very toxic DM player dynamic. You know, as I said at the beginning, I don't know of background to know where the blame here lies. Probably with both the DM and the players. But, I have no way of, proportioning it out one way or the other. Just to me in general, this sounds like a DM who really does care about his craft, but has been pushed to the breaking point by toxic players. I could be completely wrong, I'm just speculating. But just based on what I know here, my advice is that the DM should just take a break and focus on establishing a small, solid, stable group of players. And then just start a whole new campaign from scratch. Alright, well that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Share the video if you can. And anything you can do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.
The greatest adventure is what lies